All right, welcome back, everyone. What's going on? I'm just going to give you a quick little update. Try to be more proactive with updates with the projects because I know some of you are looking forward to things. So, last few days, I've been doing a lot of family obligation type stuff. It's been someone's birthday. I've been going out. Family friend came to visit, all that kind of thing. My university degree, like first year, stage 1, is now fully confirmed. I'm fully enrolled. That's locked in. Payment processed, etc. All good. Because there were some technical problems with like payment. Not my problem. The university had some issues going on, so I had to wait for them to resolve that. But yeah, now it's locked in. And it was kind of weird in that intermediate point where it wasn't confirmed, where I feel like I don't feel like I can go full in with my pre-learning, like doing courses before the degree starts until I know I'm enrolled. Maybe that's like an ADD thing, but now it's locked in. I feel confident. And I've been continuing on with my virology course. At the moment, we're getting deeper into ELISA tests, so enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays. So I'm at the point in the course now where I know how to do them. We're using like a virtual simulatory thing, so you can do the ELISAs virtually. And now the next stage is to actually answer some questions as part of like investigations about it. So we're studying COVID samples virtually and trying to discover things about like the demographics and what categories of people are more efficient at generating antibodies and stuff like that. So it's interesting. Yeah, I want to get like a sample of everything before I start the degree. And all of the pre-learning is also like portfolio capable as well. So I get like, certificates and whatever when the courses are done. Okay, so that's pre-learning. Let me just turn you around a little bit. You won't be able to see properly because I do want to keep some stuff private. So I was talking recently about the session system, which is a way for me to fix my greatest problem and the greatest complaint that people have about me in the Blender community. I make a lot of projects. I don't always return to them. I don't update them fast enough. Some things get abandoned. They're never abandoned for me. They're in this weird hibernating spot where they're always present in my mind, but then enough time passes that when you look back, you realize that it's been like 2 years or 3 years since the last update, but there's a cognitive block preventing them from being worked on. My solution, and again after self-study, is that ideas always get dumped in, but there's a block preventing action from occurring. So like retaking those ideas or the intent and actually putting them to work. And it's the exact same problem. It stems from the same area where the list fallacy does. So if you know much about like organization, if you do a lot of organization, and if you're similar to me, you'll find that you dump every idea you have in a list or every reference you have in a list and you never look at it ever again. It's exactly the same problem. So you make a product, you compartmentalize it in a space, you never look at it again. I've discovered that the problem lies in agency. You trust yourself to look in the list, to finish your to-do list, to work on the product because you know that objectively it's something good for you, or rather you want it to be the thing that's good for you. So you expect that you will have the motivation to do it again. Problem is, if you're creative, you're always looking for the next thing. And again, that kind of ties into everyone having the problem of not being able to finish their art projects. Agency is the problem. You trust yourself too much. You need to offset the intent slightly. What I mean is outsource it. It's going to sound confusing to start with, but bear with me. So I discovered over the last couple of years that the way to make myself happier with making content again is to split my mind into two people, which is the artist and the reporter, where the artist makes literally anything, any day, any time, whatever they want, and the reporter is the one that actually cares about performance and stuff, right? The reporter looks at what the artist made and says, okay, well, this would be good on this channel and I can explain it in this way and that might get more views and stuff like that. And the one thing you're never supposed to do is let the reporter tell the artist what to do, because that's where everyone starts failing and that's where burnout happens. That is the actual cause of burnout. If we're looking for one, imagine that people start off as artists, they make whatever they want, they get attention online, and then they start letting the metrics tell the artist what to do. So the artist feels a dissonance where they don't know why, but they don't feel right anymore. And it's because there's no free expression or free intent to create being perverted, manipulated by this addiction to proxies and metrics. The reporter is the barrier for that. The reporter is the only thing that cares about that and says, okay, I will protect the artist. You make whatever you want, you put it into a bowl, I will take the bowl and then try to make money from it or do this, that, or the other. But the bowl is all I have. And separating things like that really helped massively. But it's in the recent times that I realized that there was still something missing, because though I was happy, I wasn't returning to things like the products and stuff. So we solved one problem, which is the whole burnout thing and being dejected at YouTube and external validation and stuff like that. But we haven't solved the other one. And now it's this core thing, which is how do we tie these two things together? So in thinking about it, I realized that agency was the problem. I was like, like we have this happy dynamic now, but returning to old things isn't possible. And thinking about it that way is actually part of the problem. You don't want to return to old things as a creative because you've locked in emotion and memory that isn't necessarily positive in that. You don't want to go backwards, you want to go forwards and explore new exciting things. So part of the mentality of it is taking the old things and instead putting them as part of the future, where we're not being locked into old decaying stuff. We're reinterpreting it and recycling it as interesting new things. But the only way that's going to happen is if there's an agent of some kind, whether it's just the roll of a dice, where the dice become the agent, or an AI, where the AI becomes your little manager that tells you to take one of those old things and put it in front of you so that it can now be modified, improved, or even ripped apart for fun and turned into new things by the artist. So I was building something that I called the data space, which is basically that. It's connections, it's indexes to every single thing that I make and I'm interested in. Every inspiration I've gathered, every product I've made, every idea board. It's kind of mental, it's everything. And again, remembering that when you put things in lists, you alone will never look at them again. The only thing you need to do is every morning, like if you're starting to work, you say, okay, I make a promise that I will now let the agent give me an assignment and I will work from that. Kind of like a job. You have a middle manager or a boss or someone that gives you a task, or a teacher gives you an assignment. And that's a flow I'm going to be getting into anyway, right, with university. So there's just a mirror version of me that's giving me an assignment, and that's all it is. And it's not something you necessarily have to do, but again, for the sake of respect, the reporter must respect the artist must respect the guide. But in that, you have freedom to do what you want. And it's also why it's interesting, or important rather, to make sure that everything that this guide agent has access to is only built from the inside out, from your interest, and not from the outside in. That's a really important factor. Now, I already talked about exactly this in a previous video, but as I talk about it in more and more videos, the discussion gets more refined as things get closer, like we're moving from draft to final product. So bear with me. You've already been through all this, previous channel videos, but it's also kind of helping you to understand it more as well. And as I work on it every day, we're getting closer to the point where I can really put it to the test. And I have been putting it to the test already, slightly, just scratching the surface, right, with some of the new content, new channels, whatever. I'm excited to finally test it on the product stuff, because that's the core reason for doing it. I'm not jumping into it just yet, but it's there. And you might notice, again, it's blurred out in the depth of field, so you can't really read things, because I don't want people stealing the names for some of my future products. You may be able to see that things are color-coded. So when I wrote in the index areas for my products and old experimental files, that's another thing. Every single blend file I've made in the past that I still have access to, I've added here, because again, I want to go back and rip them apart, feel like a scrap dealer, a salvager of old files to turn them into interesting new things. But I've color coded them based on a feeling, and the feeling is really just confidence for where it is now. So some things are green color coded, so like Afterglow and Modular Workspaces. These things are pretty new, or they're being updated, right? Modular Workspaces was updated recently. Afterglow is still pretty new, but there's so much I want to do with that, and this is exactly why I'm doing this system, because I don't want to fall into the same loop again of going like another 5 years without doing anything. I need to fix this agency issue. Other things are yellow color coded, and they are lower confidence. They're things that I know I've had complaints about because they've fallen behind a bit. And some things are gray color coded in that they don't exist yet, or they do, but only in unreleased formats where they're still being worked on. Inside of all of these areas, there's general information. Again, you can't read any of it, but it tells me exactly where all of the files are. It gives me quick links to the internet. So a link to where I can edit the product online, and a link to the public page. So if I need to, I can just click or copy, do all that. And there is also sometimes like an internal link here to like the information board where I keep all the ideas and necessary tasks and stuff like that. So to give you an example of what an agent might look like, again, so it can be the roll of a dice, it can be a random number generator, or it can be an AI, depending on exactly how you format it. But I can tell you what I would work on if we simulate a random number. So section 16 is products. So we'll assume that the guide just decided that we would look at section 16 today. So there's two subsections, one being core products and one being experimental downloadable files. It's decided 1, so that's core products. There's 24. It's chosen number 3. Number 3 is ambient grunge. So if I was just simply following the guide's intent today, I would be doing work on ambient grunge, and I would have a look at the subtasks required, or a new assignment that would have been generated, like something speculative, like have a look at this inspiration, sit in the ambient grunge file, experiment, add experiment to asset library, something like that. So the funny thing is, I've now opened the ambient grunge like subtask page. I haven't looked in here for years. So I know it sounds silly, and a lot of people have done like, random generation, let's see what we're going to do today, but it does help. So I'm sitting here, I've got that open now. Okay, tiny first step, but that's what's required to try and get over this problem. There was always a little bit of difficulty in, well, if I'm going to work on something, then I have to find the files for it, and that's going to be annoying. No, okay, let me just copy the directory, so I don't even have to think about where it is. I'm already in the file. Okay, hey ho, here we are, we're in ambient grunge. We haven't been in here in years, probably a few years. And you can see that I was already experimenting with physical versions of grunge, utilizing geometry nodes. I know it looks a bit Play-Doh-y, plus things have actually changed a bit as the Blender versions have changed. But you can see what I was doing. I was simulating like the physical presence of dirt. And none of this ever got released because it was never finished. But it was working, as you can see. Look, dirt surfaces growing around. But actually the point is, I never look in here, so I never did any more work. But I know it sounds silly because people are like, if you want to work on something, just work on it. That's not how the creative brain works, and it never has been. Maybe it only works when you've only got like one or two things. But when you're like me and you've got like 24 product projects and hundreds of dislocated files, you need a parallel agent, a little version of yourself, just to tell you what to open, because if you don't, you will autopilot, you will only do new things. That's really the problem. And it's not a problem necessarily, right? So the artist, you will always make new things. That's great. That's fine. You will never run out of ideas. A lot of people do have problems with making ideas. I don't, and I never will, right? Thank you, blessed. But it does become a problem if you don't find a way just to tame it slightly. Not tame it. Again, this is a problem of like the respect. You can't tell the artist what to do, but you can put things in front of the artist to let it plow through. So what the guy does is it's effectively, in this case, it's just putting ambient grunge in front of the artist again, because the artist wouldn't do it. I'm not going to pull that file out from a list and put it in front of me. You're just putting it in front of it and just going, okay, you're probably going to crash into it. Actually, I'm hoping you do crash into it because something in the file will finally change. That's the whole point. So again, I'm taking my time, just working with it. And now I am curious. I'm actually sitting here thinking, yeah, I vaguely remember, why is this all messed up now? I look at this and I want to improve it because I'm not happy with how it looks, but it was just experimental. But that's exactly right. This is exactly how I'm predicting that I should be feeling. You put something in front of me, I want to modify it. Do you understand how this works? See, I'm still building it, but actually like putting all the indexing together is a little bit boring. So that's why it takes a little while. And combined with the recent YouTube channel changes, I'm quite confident about where to go with it, because now that I am starting to have the ability to revisit everything and explore different types of content with that, like just sitting down, experimenting, or just doing stuff off screen and then reporting on it, I feel like I have places to put everything now. Again, I didn't have that with the main channel, given that the audience was varied and interested in different types of formats. But now that I've got channels for everything, I don't feel like I'm inhibited. You see? So that's how we're taking steps to try and fix long-standing psychological creativity issues. But it takes time. Time. And I kind of mentioned this in a revisit to the Blender market discussion on the main channel, a retrospective. There's a video where I talked about how when it comes to doing business and stuff, and this will give an answer to you as to why I talk so much about workflow, maybe to a cringy degree, right? Compared to like other artists and Blender YouTubers and whatever that are just making stuff, is that I have quite a good predictability for the future, pattern recognition, all that. And I know that if you run headfirst into a certain methodology, it'll be harder to change in the future. I described it a bit like changing your orbit in space. That's the analogy I used, where you have your high and your low point of an orbit around a planet, your apoapsis and periapsis. It doesn't actually really matter where you are in the orbit, but if you change your velocity somewhat at one specific point in an orbit, it's going to have the maximum effect on the opposite side of it. So what that means is, like, if you're approaching a space station that's close to you and you're coming in, then you need to use a lot of energy to try and align with it, especially if that's like forward and backwards energy. You think you're only making subtle changes to try and line up with that space station, right? But the thing is, every micro movement is amplified over distance. So you may have a small change close to where you are in your local space, but when projecting that across the massive space to your other orbit, the actual final point on the opposite side is moving drastically in accordance to that change. So what that means is, if you apply it to just life and time in general, small changes, micro changes you make to your workflow in the modern day have huge impacts in your long-term success. Does that make sense? So literally writing a list of products, like on a page, is a very small workflow change that may lead to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars maybe in the future, because I was finally able to start working on things again that weren't left behind. You see what that means? Small changes look stupid in the modern day, because of course they do. People are like, oh, that's silly. That seems unnecessary. Oh, just work on it. Blah, 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 blah. I remember in a long time ago, I also said this as well, that one of the things preventing me from recording back in the day was not actually the recording process or talking. It was taking a lens cap off of a camera. Now that sounds silly. Why would taking a lens cap off of a camera prevent you from making stuff? Because when you're in an autopilot mode, like just browsing Reddit or something, and you have the general feeling to record, but you're on the edge of it, any excuse that steps in between intent and action can be magnified in your mind's eye. So if there's anything interrupting that process, you go, oh, there's no point, I'll just carry on browsing Reddit. It doesn't matter what it is. Things that seem small to some people are large things cognitively for others. Hopefully that's making sense. And again, sorry for reiterating the same things I've said in previous videos, but as I understand it better, then I'm getting more refined in talking about it, if that makes sense. Are we understood? Good. So I will carry on with that. And I look forward to putting it to the test very soon. God, I can't even remember everything I was doing. And I don't know why it's also broken now. What is this? Why does it look like some fractal thing? Is that an object? Oh, it's a stick. There was supposed to be sticks, but clearly something has changed because geometry nodes has changed. Oh, there we go. I'm falling into it. Okay, if you made it this far through the video, put some kind of, I don't know, wait, let's see, what have we got? Is there a stick emoji? Nah, maybe not. Tree? A tree emoji. Just do a tree. Put the tree emoji in the comments so I can see if you made it this far. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.